KFC, NDAs, KKK, and bankruptcy. Where do all of these acronyms and nouns fit into the history of Popeye's Louisiana kitchen? Known for their Louisiana-style chicken, Popeyes has been a staple in the industry for over 50 years and they're still clucking. Sure, they make some finger-licking good chicken. Oops, my bad, wrong one. But does longevity equal financial stability? There are three basic components that make business successful: operational excellence, customer relations aka communications, and financial management. How have they stood out in these areas? More specifically, financial management. Stay tuned as we dive into America's #1 fast food chicken restaurant in 2023 and how they went bankrupt. We're about to bring y'all some sweet heat. Let's go. Popeyes was the brainchild of Al Copeland, born in 1944 in New Orleans, Louisiana, native from St. Thomas Public Housing Projects. In his early years, Copeland was already known to move to the beat of his own drum when he dropped out of high school at the age of 16. Now, somehow, the 16-year-old dropout was able to buy his first car. He didn't hold on to it for long, because when he was 18, he sold it so that he could open his first business, a donut shop that his brother Gil helped him open in Arabi, Louisiana. Apparently, entrepreneurial genes run in this family. I'm still trying to figure out where these kids from the projects, who were said to have been lucky just to have shoes on their feet, got all this money from. I'm just saying, but I digress. At 18 years old, Copeland had his Tasty Donut Shop, that is, tasty with 2 E's. To let his son Al Jr. tell it, there was a chicken spot down the street from his donut shop that was raking in the business in less hours. It was then Copeland realized he was in the wrong business. Shoot, I'm all for making bank quickly too, so I ain't mad at him. Who knew that 10 years later, that revelation would come to a realization? Now, by this time, there's another well-known chicken restaurant that was taking the industry by storm. You may have heard of it. It was helmed by the Colonel himself, Kentucky Fried Chicken, aka KFC, aka the chicken spot down the street that was killing the game. You know, the home of the original or extra crispy chicken. Copeland wanted to compete with them, tap into their brainchild of selling Southern fried chicken. On June 12, 1972, Copeland Sr. opened Chicken on the Run in Arabi, Louisiana, a suburb of New Orleans in St. Bernard Parish, selling Southern fried chicken similar to KFC. It flopped after a few months due to dismal sales, but Copeland wasn't giving up. He was going to make that quick money, dang on it, and he wasn't playing around either, because 4 days later, he reopened under the name of Popeye's Mighty Good Chicken and switched up the recipe to spicy, New Orleans-style chicken. Now about this name. Wait, how many of you thought it was named after Popeye the Sailor Man? You know, the pipe-smoking, spinach-eating, super swole sailor? Come on now, you know you did. Well, it wasn't. The inspiration behind the name, Popeyes, came from the 1971 action thriller, The French Connection, starring Gene Hackman. Hackman plays Jimmy Popeye Doyle, who's a rough, rule-breaking detective determined to catch a group of French drug smugglers. According to The Guardian, he notoriously pursues hunches that fail to pay off, cuts procedural corners to make a case, and makes decisions in the field that are risky at best and consequently awful at worst. And that's not the only thing. Popeyes is portrayed as a racist, womanizing alcoholic and disrespectful to his bosses. This is the name that Popeyes receives its name from. After all this time, maybe it was known before. If it was, we didn't hear about it. It's not like he tried to hide the fact either. Copeland spoke of it often in interviews. Now, obviously the 70s and 80s were a different time, but come on, man. A fried chicken joint named after a racist movie character? The irony, right? By the way, the movie won 5 Oscars out of 8 nominations, so apparently there was a league of other fans also. Like I said, it was a different time. Let's take a step back for a moment. It wasn't so far-fetched for most of us to have thought that Popeye the Sailor Man was the inspiration behind the name. Reason being, King Features Syndicate, owner of the rights to the character, did in fact have a licensing contract allowing use of the characters for marketing, decoration, and packaging for 35 years. It ended in 2012. This leads to the question, why use one character when the inspiration was another? Could it be the old okie dokie? Perhaps a version of the shell game? You decide. Getting back on track, apparently the change in recipe was a success because just 1 year later came store number 2. One day, that seems worth mentioning, recounts a man walking up to Copeland and telling him he had heard of his restaurant, ending the conversation with, I quote, "even though it was on the other side of town," end quote. Now, this encounter must have sparked some idea in old Al, because shortly after, it led to the name change that would carry them for the next 31 years. Popeye's Famous Fried Chicken. In 2004, the name changed to Popeye's Chicken and Biscuits, and then to Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen in 2008. By 1975, he had a failed marriage, but one thing that wasn't showing any sign of failing? Popeyes, being that the restaurant spread to 24 stores in Louisiana by then. I know, that's right. Who needs a happy family life when your business is thriving? It's all about priorities. In 1976, the first franchise location opened. It's apparent that Popeyes is doing pretty well. In spite of this success, at this time in the US, they were the number 3 fast food chicken chain. KFC, which was Copeland's motivation for opening Popeyes in the first place, was number 1, but there's another competitor in the mix: Church's Chicken. Church's opened the same year as KFC, in 1952. But here's the thing about Church's. According to multiple sources, KFC was pretty picky about where they put their new restaurants. Early on, KFC wasn't opening locations in low-income urban neighborhoods. Church's peeped this and began moving into neighborhoods that KFC wasn't interested in. Church's was in the number 2 slot. Popeyes wasn't too thrilled about this with this ranking. Church's had well over 100 stores to Popeyes' 20-something. I mean, it should only make sense being that Copeland's store was a later invention. But for Popeyes, something needed to change, and boy, we're about to learn how much can happen in only a few years. By the late 80s, Church's was struggling. According to mysanantonio.com, Church's had a short-lived burger chain, GW Juniors, which permanently closed in 1985 despite being popular in Texas. Around that time, an urban legend about the chain gained popularity, having people believe that Church's was owned by the KKK. A Texas-based chicken restaurant that started in the 50s? That would be impossible. Okay, on kinda related note, there was also a rumor that Church's used ingredients that made black men infertile. While one or maybe even both seem asinine, possibly at best, they were effective. They really did impact sales. So much so, a franchise sued the company because it had informed them about the rumors. Well, we're curious to know how these rumors began in the first place. How does the old 80s song go? I'll spare you from my singing and just quote it for you. How do rumors get started? They're started by jealous people, and they get mad seeing something they had and something somebody else is holding. I hope you're seeing the insinuation. Up until the late 80s, Copeland had basically been running the show solo, but in 1988, he created the positions of President, Chief Financial Officer, and Executive Vice President of Operations. CompanyHistories.com reports that 2 of the 4 positions were filled by executives he scooped up from Church's. One of them being CFO Louis Kilbourne, who signed an NDA prohibiting him from disclosing confidential information when he left Church's, meaning he needed to keep his trap shut about Church's business, including how they're struggling. Most times, violating NDAs come with some sort of financial penalty or litigation. Copeland wanted to expand through acquisitions, and he set his sights on Church's, but not without some nudging from Kilbourne. Of course, this got folks talking, that maybe Kilbourne was like, forget all of that NDA talk. Popeyes may have been a smaller company than Church's, but they were considered more upscale. Remember, Church's was purposefully placing their stores in the hood, basically. Alright, are you ready to get in the weeds of hostile business strategy? Good. Me too. According to Restaurant Business, Kilbourne's thinking went this way. Church's was a valid concept that had overexpanded. It was an ideal acquisition target. It had no debt, and it was in rich real estate, with some 70% of the stores company owned. Popeyes would buy Church's, slash the losers, and sell off competing stores to Popeyes and Church's franchisees for conversion. A much smaller but profitable chain of 600 to 800 stores would be left. Sale proceeds would be used to pare down debt. Alright, did you keep up with all of that? For a quick, condensed recap. Basically, Kilbourne's like, Church's is in over their head. Now's the time to swoop in and take them over to dominate the market. Then, After getting rid of the stores that aren't making money, they could pour resources into other profitable ones and reduce the debt and come out ahead. Sounds like a sweet deal, huh? Did y'all take note of the topic of this video? Just checking. In October 1988, Copeland made an offer of $300 million, but by this time, Church's was under new leadership and showing improvement. They were shutting down stores that weren't making money and bringing in more money in the others. Now that things were turning around, the cost went up. During this time, Church's tried hard to keep this sale from happening. They sold 120 unprofitable restaurants and put itself up for auction to avoid this takeover. Unfortunately for them, it didn't work because Copeland finally bought Church's in February 1989. Reports vary regarding the prices. Some sources report Copeland paid $330 million, with other sources going as high as $480 million. Either way, he should have kept that money. Why? Well, you'll see very soon. Trust, old Uncle Sneezer's got you. Once the deal was sealed, the new company, named Al Copeland Enterprises, Inc., controlled about 17% of the $10 billion fried chicken market. But together, the two chains were only about 1/3 the size of KFC. That's a dang shame. Popeyes, with 703 restaurants, had been attempting since November to take over Church's, a publicly held company with 1,478 restaurants. Even with a merger, the new company lagged behind the reigning king of chicken, Kentucky Fried Chicken, who at the time had annual sales of about $4 billion in its 7,000 restaurants. Homie still came in second place after shelling out all of that cash. But wait, it gets better. For us. Sorry, not for him. Here's how it was reportedly supposed to go. In documents submitted to a federal court during the takeover process, Popeye said that if it acquired Church's, it would close 250 Church's restaurants, keep 92 with the Church's name, rename 303 others as Popeyes, and sell 440 others for about $160 million over the next 4 years. But that's not exactly what happened after the deal went down. Within a couple months of the takeover, Copeland fired 12% of Church's staff, including Ernest Renaud, the company's president and chief executive. Copeland himself replaced Renaud as CEO and also became chairman of Church's board. According to what happened next, dude should have rethought the whole organizational chart. After closing and losing stores, he only sold 54 Church's stores to franchisees instead of 250. He also didn't make any friends with the franchisees because he upped some charges. Not only that, he didn't sell off properties like he was supposed to because he wanted the franchisees to pay up some serious cash. Doesn't seem like the plan went the way he said it would. What's to come of all of this, you ask? Well, after falling way short in achieving the plans detailed in the acquisition, Popeye's famous fried chicken and Church's fried chicken were forced into bankruptcy because they owed creditors nearly $400 million. Copeland's intentions were to sell high-yield junk bonds to repay the loans. If you didn't know, junk bonds are bonds issued by companies that are financially struggling and have a high risk of defaulting or not paying their interest payments or repaying the principals to investors. Sounds about right. Copeland bit off more than he could chew. Seems like his desperation to become the king of slinging chicken came crashing down around him. His best bet would have been to chicken out when it came time to close the deal. But wait, there's more. The losses keep on coming. To resolve this bankruptcy case, the court agreed to the formation of America's Favorite Chicken, Inc., AFC for short, the new parent company of Popeyes and Church's. AFC would be owned by the creditors Copeland owed money to. This meant that Copeland no longer owned Popeyes. That's right, he lost Popeyes all because he bought Church's chicken. Ain't that a What's the phrase? A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. He would still have some control due to a deal in which his company, Diversified Food and Seasonings, could remain the main supplier of all Popeyes restaurants. Just so you know, because I know you're wondering, AFC sold Church's Chicken in 2004 to Arcopita, so Popeyes and Church's were no longer linked together. Also, in 2017, Restaurant Brands International bought Popeyes for $1.8 billion. That's major chicken right there. There have been franchise locations in recent years who have filed for bankruptcy. In March 2023, Restaurant Business Online reported that Premier Cajun Kings was the third franchise since the start of the year to file for bankruptcy. The week before the article was published, they cited the founder Patrick Sadu's untimely passing in May 2022 as a factor. That wasn't the only reason though. Like Copeland, he was the only one running day-to-day operations. When he passed, it caused tremendous operational instability. Rising costs for food and labor added with the challenge of finding employees made it difficult to become profitable. Unfortunately, this particular franchisee went from having 30 locations to 19 and having $8.2 million in secured debt. Earlier, we mentioned two other components that contribute to a business's success, and they are operational excellence and customer relations/communications. There could be an entirely separate video regarding Popeye's lack of operational excellence and customer relations, so we're not even going to go there at this moment. Their financial management, or rather mismanagement, was rife with entanglements. So you see, Copeland's greediness led to Popeye's filing bankruptcy and him losing the company he created. He wanted to rule the roost, but ended up losing the coop. His only ace in the hole was ensuring his company still had some part of Popeyes through his diversified food and seasonings company through 2025. Popeyes announced in 2014 that they'd bought back full control of its seasonings, recipes, and other proprietary food preparation techniques. The good news for DF&S is that they will be the main supplier for Popeyes until 2029. For the moment, anyway. Who knows what will happen by then? This saga has had more twists and turns than a roller coaster. We hope you enjoyed the journey into why Popeyes went bankrupt. Don't forget to react to this video and share your thoughts with us. We'd love to see them. Until next time,